A 35-year-old woman opens the door of a Soviet apartment on the 6th floor with no elevator. She shows you the room, the single bed, the dark wooden wardrobe. The price she's asking is so low you think you misunderstood. 150 euros a month, utilities included. Breakfast if you want. You accept. After 3 weeks, you realize breakfast lasts 2 hours, that she wants to know where you're going and with whom, that when you say maybe in a month you're leaving, her look changes completely. In this city, there are 86 men for every 100 women. Local men die young from alcohol and dangerous jobs. Those who remain often aren't worth the effort. And you, foreigner who arrived out of curiosity, have become a more valuable resource than you imagined. Unlike videos that only show you Moscow and St. Petersburg, today we're entering Novosibirsk, 1,600,000 inhabitants in the heart of Siberia, the largest city east of the Urals that almost nobody in the West knows. Here, the rules are different. Here, women have built emotional survival strategies you won't find anywhere else. Here, the room you rent can become something else without you realizing it. Stay until the end, because what I'll reveal to you at number 1 is an object every Siberian woman always carries in her bag. And when you understand what it means, you won't be able to get it out of your head. If this type of exploration interests you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Let's begin. Number 15. The megalopolis born from a bridge. Novosibirsk didn't exist 130 years ago. In 1893, there was only the Ob River, over half a mile wide, blocking construction of the Trans-Siberian Railway, the line that was supposed to connect Moscow to the Pacific Ocean across 5,000 miles of wilderness. They built a bridge, then workers arrived, then workers' families, then merchants serving the families. By 1926, the city already had 200,000 inhabitants. Today, it has 1,600,000, making it the largest city in all of Asian Russia, larger than any urban center between the Urals and Vladivostok. This explosive growth created a particular mentality. Novosibirsk doesn't have St. Petersburg's aristocracy or Moscow's bureaucracy. It's a city of people who came to build something, and this energy is still felt today in the streets, in the venues, in the hunger for novelty that residents show toward anything coming from outside. Number 14. The secret city of scientists in the woods. 19 miles from downtown Novosibirsk, hidden among the birches of the Siberian taiga, exists a city that for decades didn't appear on Soviet maps. Akademgorodok, the academic village, was built in the 1950s as an elite research center where the best minds of the Soviet Union could work far from the distractions and control of the capital. Today, about 35,000 scientists with their families live there, surrounded by institutes of nuclear physics, genetics, applied mathematics, and dozens of other disciplines. Streets have names of scientists instead of politicians. Shops sell books instead of souvenirs. Bars are full of PhD students discussing differential equations while drinking cheap vodka. It's a parallel world where intelligence is the main social currency and where you can meet a 25-year-old girl completing a doctorate in quantum physics looking for someone who can hold an interesting conversation. Number 13. The theater that humiliated Moscow. The Novosibirsk Opera and Ballet Theater is the largest in Russia, not the largest in Siberia, the largest in the entire country. Bigger than Moscow's legendary Bolshoi that the whole world knows. It was built during World War II, when Novosibirsk became a refugee for factories and institutions evacuated from the German advance. The Silver Dome dominates the downtown skyline, and the interior can hold over 1,800 spectators in a hall decorated with a luxury that seems impossible at this distance from any other cultural center. Tickets cost the equivalent of 10 or 15 euros for performances that in major European capitals would cost 100. Novosibirsk women dress for the theater like their grandmothers did 70 years ago, with furs, jewelry, elaborate makeup, transforming every evening into a social event where being seen is as important as the show itself. Number 12. Prices that seem like a printing error. 650 square foot apartment in downtown Novosibirsk rents for less than 300 euros a month. A complete dinner in a good restaurant with appetizer, first course, second course, and vodka costs less than 15 euros. Coffee at a bar costs half a euro. A metro ticket costs 20 cents. These numbers aren't exaggerations or exceptions. They're the daily norm of a city where the average salary is around 500 euros monthly, but real purchasing power exceeds that of many European capitals. For someone who earns in a strong currency and spends in rubles, Novosibirsk offers a standard of living that in the West would be reserved for those earning 4 or 5 times as much. Dinner out every night, taxis instead of public transport, generous gifts without thinking too much about it. The math is simple, and local women know how to do the calculations. Number 11. The cold that kills and makes beautiful. In January, the average temperature in Novosibirsk is minus 0.4 degrees Fahrenheit. But the average hides the peaks, minus 22 degrees Fahrenheit, minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit, occasionally minus 49 degrees Fahrenheit during Siberian cold waves. At these temperatures, breath freezes instantly, forming crystals that fall to the ground with a sound locals call the whisper of stars. Exposed skin freezes in minutes. Phone batteries die in less than 10 minutes. Glasses fog up entering any heated building and remain unusable for minutes. Yet Novosibirsk women leave home with heels, thin tights, fur coats that cost as much as a car, but are the only thing that really works at these temperatures. Beauty at minus 40 degrees. Fahrenheit isn't vanity. It's resistance. It's the refusal to let the climate decide who you are. Number 10. The imbalance that changes all the rules. For every 100 women in Novosibirsk, there are 86 men. This demographic imbalance, which repeats throughout Russia but reaches extreme levels in Siberia, is the result of decades of dangerous work in mines, factories, construction sites where men died young, combined with rates of male alcoholism that still today shorten the average life of a Russian man by almost 15 years compared to a Russian woman. The practical result is that women compete for a limited pool of available men, and that available men often aren't worth the competition. Sober, hardworking, reliable men are scarce resources that girls' families evaluate with almost commercial attention. The others, those who drink, who don't work, who raise their hands, are so numerous that many women prefer to stay alone rather than settle. It's in this context that the idea of the foreigner takes on particular meaning. Number 9. The cuisine you didn't know. Siberian cuisine exists as a distinct tradition from Western Russian cuisine, even though the outside world rarely hears about it. Siberian pelmeni are dumplings filled with 3 different meats: beef, pork, and lamb, in proportions each family guards as a secret, served in boiling broth or fried in butter with sour cream. Omal is a fish that lives only in Lake Baikal, smoked or served raw in a style vaguely reminiscent of Japanese sashimi, with a delicacy of flavor that surprises anyone expecting only heavy, greasy food. Reindeer meat comes from indigenous communities in the north, lean and flavorful in ways beef can't replicate. The prices of these dishes in Novosibirsk restaurants are so low you could eat 3 courses of regional specialties, spending less than what a sandwich costs in a Western airport. Number 8. the city that was forbidden to foreigners. During the Soviet era, Novosibirsk was a closed city. The presence of military industries, nuclear research centers, and the strategic role of the Trans-Siberian made the entire area off-limits to any foreign visitor. Soviet citizens themselves needed special permits to visit. This closure lasted decades, isolating the population from any contact with the outside and creating a curiosity toward the foreign world that has never completely exhausted itself. When the Soviet Union collapsed and borders opened, Novosibirsk still remained far from tourist circuits that favored Moscow, St. Petersburg, the Golden Ring. Even today, Western tourists are a rarity that attracts looks and interest. A foreigner who speaks even just a few words of Russian automatically becomes a curiosity, an object of attention that wouldn't exist in cities more accustomed to visitors. Number 7. The rooms women rent and why. An informal market of shared apartments exists in Novosibirsk that operates according to logic that would seem strange in the West. Single women, often divorced or widowed, with apartments larger than one person alone needs, rent rooms at very low or symbolic prices to foreign men. The practice historically originated from Soviet housing structure, where entire families lived in communalki sharing kitchen and bathroom. Today, the average Soviet apartment has 2 or 3 rooms, inherited from parents, too expensive to maintain on one salary. The foreigner pays an amount that for him is irrelevant, but for her covers utilities. He has accommodation no hotel can offer, immersion in real life, access to a kitchen, company if he wants it. She has economic security and male presence in the house, which in Russia means social status. But there's another level. After weeks of cohabitation, the line between landlady and something else becomes blurred. Breakfast gets longer. Questions become personal. The scheduled departure becomes a topic she avoids discussing. Number 6. What happens in clubs at -22 degrees Fahrenheit? Novosibirsk nightlife operates in conditions that would seem prohibitive for any entertainment. Outside, it's -22 degrees Fahrenheit. Snow crunches underfoot. The trip from taxi to club entrance lasts 20 seconds, but it's enough to feel the cold bite any inch of exposed skin. Inside, the contrast is total. Mandatory coat check where you leave fur, coat, lined boots. Then you enter an environment at 77 degrees Fahrenheit where girls wear dresses that in any temperate climate would be considered too short for August. Clubs stay open until 6 in the morning because the alternative, going out in the cold of night, isn't attractive to anyone. People dance, drink, socialize with an intensity that also derives from awareness that outside there's a hostile world where this lightness can't exist. Would you be able to walk in heels on an icy road at -40 degrees Fahrenheit just to go dancing? Number 5. Alcohol as social language. Refusing a glass of vodka in Siberia isn't simply rude. It's a social signal that communicates distrust, distance, refusal to enter the inner circle of whoever is offering you. The toasting tradition is elaborate and codified. The first glass you drink to the health of those present. The second to those who aren't. The third to love. And so on, with formulas that vary but always require emptying the entire glass, never sipping, never leaving residue. Women participate in these rituals as much as men, with an alcohol tolerance that surprises those arriving from cultures where drinking is less integrated into daily sociality. But here, the Siberian paradox also emerges. The same women who drink vodka at toasts despise men who drink too much, who lose control, who become violent or pathetic. They know how to distinguish perfectly between the social drinking that builds relationships and the alcoholism that destroys people. Number 4. The war you feel in silence. Novosibirsk is over 1,800 miles from the Ukrainian front. Here you don't hear explosions. There are no air raid sirens. No military convoys pass through the streets. But the war is present in a different way, more subtle, and in some ways more painful. Every family has someone who left: a son, a husband, a brother, a cousin. Some returned. Many didn't. Nobody talks about this openly because talking means risking. Women lower their voices when the topic emerges. Look at who might hear. Change the subject if they sense foreign ears. In the city's cemeteries, fresh graves with photos of young boys multiply. In Orthodox churches, candles for the fallen burn in rows. But officially, everything's fine. Life goes on. Shops are full. Clubs operate. Siberia has always known how to bear in silence what it can't change. This ability to go forward while everything around collapses has a name women use often: terpenia, endurance. Number 3. Why they're looking for you specifically. Novosibirsk. Women who seek foreign men aren't desperate. Many are educated, have stable jobs, owned apartments, rich social lives. They're not looking for an economic savior because they don't need one. They're looking for something different. They're looking for men who don't drink until losing consciousness 3 nights a week. They're looking for men who consider it normal to help at home instead of expecting to be served. They're looking for men who talk about their emotions instead of burying them under vodka. They're looking for men who don't consider it normal to raise their hands when angry. These characteristics, which in the West seem like the bare minimum for a functioning adult, in Russia are rare enough to justify searching beyond national borders. The Siberian woman seeking a foreigner has made a rational calculation. She looked at available options in her local market, evaluated international alternatives, and concluded it's worth trying. It's not romanticism. It's Siberian pragmatism applied to romantic life. Number 2. Akademgorodok's secret after midnight. In the scientist's city, something happens you won't find written in any guide. After midnight, when laboratories close and libraries empty, Akademgorodok bars fill with a particular crowd. 30-something female researchers who spent the day sequencing DNA or calculating orbital trajectories, still in white lab coats under their overcoats, drink cheap beer and discuss things that have nothing to do with work. Some of these women have multiple doctorates, but don't have a partner because they spent the decade when their peers were getting married locked in laboratories. Others had failed marriages with colleagues who couldn't separate professional competition from domestic life. Here, female intelligence isn't a threat to hide, but a fact everyone accepts. An interesting conversation is worth more than a bouquet of flowers. A man who knows how to listen is worth more than one who only knows how to talk about himself. And a foreigner who arrives with genuine curiosity instead of catalog expectations finds fertile ground for connections that in major tourist capitals would be impossible. Number 1. The object every Siberian woman carries in her bag. Here's the thing I promised you at the beginning, the one you won't get out of your head. Every woman in Novosibirsk, from student to professor, from sales clerk to executive, always carries a pair of shoes with her. Not just any spare shoes. A pair of high heels, elegant, often expensive, that she keeps in a separate bag or in the one she always carries. Outside, on icy streets, she walks in heavy boots, practical, non-slip. But as soon as she enters an office, a restaurant, a theater, a club, she stops at the entrance, takes off her boots, and puts on the heels. This ritual repeats millions of times a day throughout Siberia. It seems like an insignificant detail, a fashion matter. It's not. Those shoes in the bag are the clearest declaration of who these women are. They say, "The cold doesn't define me. The fatigue of walking on ice doesn't define me. The harshness of this place doesn't define me. I choose who to be at every moment, in every room I enter. And that woman who rented you the room, the one who doesn't want you to leave, she also has a pair of heels in her bag. And when she wears them for you in the evening, she's saying something she'll never say in words. If this documentary made you see Siberia differently, leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next trips to places nobody tells you about. Would you live in a city where your landlady makes you breakfast every morning and doesn't want to know when you're leaving? Write it in the comments. See you in the next video.